Welcome back to the Miracles and Grace podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Grace Marinick-Hackett, and today I'm here with my friend Jessie Labelle. We actually met through my husband, Davey, and y'all met through a workout group.
We did, yeah. It was an incredible group. We worked out for, I think it was like 6 months. We were strengthening our bodies and our faith at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it was like 3 times a week, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was early.
We'd get up and we'd go and we would just pray together and we'd dive into the word real quick and then we would just hit a workout. And we got to know each other really, really well.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, but Davey's definitely kept up with a lot of guys from that group.
Yes.
And I was actually just talking to somebody right before this about one of the guys in the group, and then I was like, oh, the guy I'm about to record with was also in that group.
Yeah.
We're going to dinner with somebody else from the group tonight.
Good. Who y'all going out with?
With Noah and Maddie.
Noah and Maddie, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a special group. It was totally different than anything I've ever done before.
Yeah.
And I had been very new in my faith at that point, and I had a friend send me a message, said, hey, there's this workout group of guys that are looking to like strengthen their faith and strengthen their bodies at the same time. And I thought it's one and the same. I mean, our bodies are our temples, and just meeting those guys, we all got so close over that 6-month period. And it was really, really cool.
That was such a great group. I've known other people who have done those workout groups since, and I feel like y'all's was really special.
It was the first one too.
Yeah, totally.
You know, we had like
morale was high.
Yeah, morale was incredibly high. A lot of us showed up like for every workout, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was like 6 or 8 of us. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
It was awesome. That was a really cool season, and I'm glad that it led to this.
I know. Well, and what's funny is after Davey went, he comes back and he's like, yeah, I met this guy and this guy. And when he got to know you, he was like, this guy has the craziest story. And at that point the podcast was like kind of in the works, but I remember him saying, you've got to have him on the podcast whenever you get it started. So that was like before I'd even started it. But as soon as he heard your story, he was like, he's been through so many crazy things. So I'm excited to talk about all the things today. But do you want to give just like a high level of who you are, what you do?
Sure. You just got me on this tip of like remembering that workout group, and it's really, really cool because Davey was he was the first person that I connected with.
Really?
Yeah. There was, when you put 8 guys together, obviously there's going to be connections made, but Davey was like the first one that I really got personal with. I remember we were hanging out and he's like, I want to hear more of your story. Let's go on a hike at Radnor.
Yeah, I knew y'all did went to coffee or a hike or something. That's right.
Yeah.
It was after that he told me that.
Yeah.
And then something else sweet that's just a side note is when my dad was first diagnosed with ALS, that was like right around.
It was in the middle of when we were in that group.
Yeah, because we had a prayer walk at my parents' house where every day for 7 days, a group of people walked around the house 7 times and prayed over the house and my dad. And then on the 7th day, we kind of opened it up for like, that was really just like their closest group. But throughout the week, we opened it up for more and more people. And you came to one of them, which meant so much.
That was so special to me. Again, my faith is young. It's very important part of my story. It's I guess 4 years I've been walking with the Lord, and I've been praying, and I've been learning what it means to be a believer, and it took me 40 years to get there. So that point, that was probably 2 years in, and I was just seeing faithful communities come together and what that actually does.
Yeah.
And that walk to me, that was really, really, really special because I was seeing scripture come to life, and actually people walking around praying for 7 days straight, and just breaking strongholds and breaking chains, and seeing the result of that now it just fills me up. It just fills that faith that I have. And
totally.
Yeah.
So you moved here from Canada.
Yeah. The overview. I moved here from Canada 10 years ago, actually. 10 years ago on October 15th. So it's literally the 10-year anniversary of moving to Nashville. I was the only one in my family that left Canada. I've been a singer-songwriter my whole entire life. As far back as I can remember, I've been making music. Music is what had me in Canada. It was the only job I ever had was as a musician, whether it was producing, songwriting. I did that from the time I was like a teenager. I was in a bunch of bands. We got a song on the radio, and that turned into writing for other bands and record deals and the whole thing. And that kept me really busy in Canada, but it also as much success as I had there, it did lead me into some dark places.
Yeah.
Very quickly, and I didn't know really the difference between good and evil, God and the devil. I didn't know that there was an enemy, and I got sucked into a life very quickly there I just didn't really have much of a moral compass. And the only direction I had was music, and music kept pulling me into success, and success kept pulling me into these dark corners.
Yeah.
So I moved here to get away from that, and that was 10 years ago.
What made you know, like, I want to get away from this? Because I feel like a lot of people get into it and...
Yeah, there were struggles. There were struggles both spiritually and personally, financially, creatively. It just seemed that everywhere that I tried to turn to escape the darkness up there, I ran into other problems. There were just walls. And I know that God was putting those walls up. They were boundaries. They were very clear boundaries saying, no, you're not supposed to be doing this, or you're not supposed to be here. And I believe that's how God works. I'm really grateful that I had the discernment to see it back then without even knowing what I was following, who I was trying to chase. I wasn't sure if it was God or the devil at that point because I was chasing the enemy a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kept on hitting walls in Toronto. It was whether I couldn't I couldn't make my label deal work, or I couldn't afford the place that I was living, or I couldn't write the right songs. It was just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I just felt this stagnation, and I had to go somewhere better. And all my friends who moved to Nashville seemed to be thriving. So
that makes sense.
I followed them down here.
Yeah, they say rejection is redirection.
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so you moved here, and then when I was talking to Davey about this podcast, because he knows a lot more of your story than I do. A lot of it I'm hearing for the first time, other than like snippets I've heard from him. But you grew up Jewish.
I did grow up Jewish. Yes, it's become a huge part of my journey.
Yeah, I bet.
It's always been a part of my identity, but I haven't known what it actually meant. Growing up Jewish, I went to synagogue. I learned how to read, write, and speak Hebrew.
How often do you go to synagogue?
Synagogue would be on the high holidays. So we really on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we would go.
That sounds so much more official coming out of your mouth. I'm like, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
We would go for bar mitzvahs,
Yeah.
And bat mitzvahs, and for weddings, and really anything that was whenever we wanted to be in the presence of God, we would go to shul or to synagogue. Really the high holidays, that was really when we would go, and we would pray. And in the synagogue, we have Torahs, and it's really just the first 5 books, and we're praying through the Torah, mostly in Hebrew. So one of the disconnects that I had with my faith was that I was reading in Hebrew, I was learning Hebrew at the same time, so it was a language that I was learning that I didn't fully understand, that I was also praying in, and it was very hard to... How do I pray this if I don't know exactly how to speak it?
Interesting.
Yeah, but I did grow up Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed, spent a lot of time in Israel, which I'm so grateful for. I think that's one of the greatest gifts my parents ever gave me, was taking me to Israel so many times when I was a child. And I got to, when I was bar mitzvahed at the age of 13, I read from the Torah, from Exodus, on top of Mount Masada. And it's just this holy moment. I'm like, I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When I was 13, and because when you're 13, you're in a very different place, or at least I was in life. I didn't totally comprehend everything that was going on around me.
Yeah.
And I look back at photos, I'm like, I was in Israel on a mountaintop with a Torah and a rabbi in my hands. Like, it's just wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I made friends with this girl actually through Instagram who is Jewish, and one thing that we talked about a lot, I've still never met her, but one thing we talked about a lot was just how she like kind of struggles with, obviously, so like in Judaism, Jewish people don't believe in the New Testament, the redemption of Old Testament law, so it's a lot of like the legalistic. I think she struggled with legalism is what I'm trying to get
It's
at.
a fascinating conversation. We could probably do an entire podcast
I bet
just
we
on
could.
this one point. Judaism today, the way I understand it, because I grew up with it and I retain it. I mean, when people ask me, a lot of people ask me, they say, are you Jewish or are you Christian? Because I tour a lot and I get to tell my testimony, I get to tell my story.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is the beginning are my roots in Judaism. And I tell people where I came from, and they always ask, so wait, did you convert? Like, have you converted to Christianity? And my answer is always that when a Jew comes to know Jesus, they're not converting, they're completing. It's completing your Judaism through the Messiah.
Wow.
And there are a lot of Jews today, a lot of my family too, and it's a sensitive subject, but
Yeah, totally.
it's not that we don't believe in the New Testament, it's that we don't really know about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of hidden, and it's just
not part of
sort
the
of
doctrine.
locked off, and it's like you don't look at that. And you're taught as a child that you don't have to look at it because everything that you need is within the Torah. And it's all there. And it's this kind of story with no end. You know, you see Moses at the end and he's staring out and he's looking for it and he's seeing it, but he's not getting there. And it makes me sad because there's so much
To the promised land.
there's so much to the promise. Well, everything is in the promised land. The promised land is the promise, and it's the answer to everything that the Jews are seeking. And if you don't cross over and you don't find it, you don't find it. You're just always looking for it. And it's this wall that's drawn up. And a lot of my family that I try to not preach to, but just gently nudge toward Jesus and toward getting to know him, and just, hey, there's this thing that you should look at. It's this wall that's like, no, like it's just a rejection immediately. So
Yeah.
something I pray about a lot is,
Yeah.
are those walls being lifted and that veil being lifted, which it has been, but
Yeah.
it's reaching the people that are still looking for the promised land.
Yeah. And when you find something that you found so much freedom in, obviously you want to share it with people.
Yeah.
Especially the people you love most. So,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, sorry. That may have been a loaded question. It's just something that's so fascinating to me, too, the more I learn about it. And as I talk to people who are Jewish, and obviously also there's like people practice in different ways. Mm-hmm. So one person's experience, just like in Christianity, someone who grows up in a Christian home could have a very different experience than someone else. So anyways, thank you for sharing all that.
Of course.
Okay, do you want to tell I don't even know like the whole trajectory of your story, but Davey has told me, I know obviously you were in a crazy incident that involved a gun. I mean, when we were talking, he was like, he's dealt with cancer, a tornado, a shooting, a fire. Like, I was like, okay, so where do I start?
I'll just tell
Great.
you more or less. I'll probably run on a lot of sentences. It'll be a long story. So like I said, when I was in Canada, I was making music, and I didn't have much of a faith background at all. I was chasing the world a lot, and the world was chasing me back. And I decided to move to Nashville to try and clean slate. I thought if I sell everything I have, move my whole life to a different country, and plant roots again, maybe I can outrun whatever's been chasing me here. And I got to Nashville. I thought it would be really easy to make it in music here. I thought it would be the simplest thing in the world because it was pretty easy in Canada, to be honest. I don't want to not give credit to people who are out there struggling and trying, but in Canada, it just seemed to come to me. And I thought, you know what? Nashville's going to be exactly the same. And I came down here, and very quickly I learned that it was very difficult to make it in the music industry here. And I fell on hard times again, and I had to take like any gig I possibly could.
Were you doing country at that point?
I was making country music, yes.
Cool.
And I was touring. I was taking these crazy gigs like 14 hours away for like a couple $100 because I just wanted to make it work no matter what. And I moved down here. The long and short of it is I moved down here thinking that it was for music. And what I learned in retrospect is that the move down here was never for music. It was for God. It was a place where God was trying to get my attention, and he couldn't get my attention up in Canada. So he moved me here. And while I was chasing music, God was chasing me. And the first time that I had an encounter with him was about a year and a half after I moved down here. Like I said, I was taking these crazy gigs 14 hours away, and I took one in Pennsylvania, and I drove up to Pennsylvania. I had my old manager's minivan. It was like this beaten down car, and I hopped in it by myself, drove 14 hours just to get to this university gig. And like 5 minutes before I got to the exit where the hotel was, it started snowing. And I grew up in the snow, so I should know how to drive in the snow, but the snowflakes hit the windshield and the road got all slick and icy, and I didn't know what to do in black. I'd forgotten what you're supposed to do in black ice. And I just hit the brakes, and you're not supposed to do that. and I lost complete control of the car. The car spun out across like 4 lanes of traffic, and I actually ended up crashing at the side of the road. But I thought when I started spinning in that accident, I thought that my life was over. I had this really weird and wild moment where I saw like the things people say that you see before you're going to die. I saw the lights I saw a big light flashing. I saw all the memories of my life in an instant just flash before me. And
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. I'd never lost control of a car on a highway either. And I think that my fear and survival mode kicked in, and I thought, you know what, there's no way I'm going to survive this. And spun across the highway, thought I was going to die, and I had a peace about it, which I didn't understand that at that time either. There was a lot of things that happened in a very short period of time, but it was a moment that I'll never forget. And then I crashed at the side of the road, and I crashed into these 2 trees that were like on the side of a mountain that were in the Poconos, and there was like a 200-foot drop on the other side. And then I was like, am I in a dream? Am I alive? Like, what's happening? I looked over the dash of the car, and I realized that I was on the edge of going over a cliff. And at that same moment,
Oh my gosh.
it's so dramatic. At that same moment, fire had caught in the engine. I started seeing smoke billowing in through the vents of the car. And I was like, what is going on? And my survival instinct said, just get out of this car. And I tried to elbow the door, but it was wedged in between one of the trees, and I couldn't get out. And then I had the same thought again. I thought, okay, my life's over. This is it. Like, there's no way that I'm getting out of this alive. And I closed my eyes, and I know now that I was praying, but I was just like, I got to get out of this car. And I tried one more time, and I actually wedged the door open. And I got out, and I ran all the way back to the interstate, and I looked back at this car, and the car was like, I don't know, 10 feet of flames above it now. And I couldn't believe what was happening. And then I had a thought in my mind. I thought, oh my God, my guitar is still in that car. Like, only a musician would ever do this. But I ran back to the car, and I opened the door. Don't ask me why. And I grabbed the guitar out, and I actually got the guitar out of this car. It was almost as if I placed more value on my guitar than I did on my own life. It's a really fitting metaphor for that season of life. I thought music was all that there was. It was the idol that I was chasing. And I got my guitar out, ran back to the road, and eventually the cops showed up, and it was a wild scene. And I was okay. The car was completely burned. I remember the police called me the next morning, and they asked me what kind of car it was, because it had been so engulfed in flames that like they couldn't get a VIN off of it. They couldn't get anything. The floor had melted out. It was just a metal frame. And I survived that, and I came back to Nashville, and everyone here was saying the same thing to me. They were all saying, praise God, you're alive. And I said, what is praise? What does that mean? Like, praise God. I didn't understand that term. And they said, well, you have to thank God for what happened to you, for not the fact that you were in the accident, the fact that you survived the accident. You have angels. And I said, I don't. What does that mean? Like, angels? You talking about like wings? They're like, no, Jesus. Like, Jesus pulled you through that. You need to thank Jesus. And my first thought, with that wall went up, and I said, absolutely not. Nope, I don't do Jesus. I'm Jewish. It's not a thing. Like, thank you for that, but I don't. It made me deeply uncomfortable to believe that I had to give glory to anyone other than myself for making it through that. I thought, I'm the one that got out of the car.
Yeah.
You know, like I was trying to save myself, and I couldn't. You can't. It's impossible. We're not meant to save ourselves. We need God. And I got out of that accident, and I just shrugged off the prayers. I shrugged off the community, and I went back to the life that I knew, which was chasing idols. It was chasing relationships and this fame that I had experienced, and then I wanted again, and I wanted things of the world. And God was trying to get my attention in that car crash. So a couple years later, that was like 2018. And then in 2020, I was living in Germantown, and we had this horrible tornado that came through East Nashville and Germantown. It claimed a couple people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I had been living in this building, and I remember I was sleeping when the tornado hit. It was 12:30 a.m. And I just remember being jolted from my sleep, kind of like when you wake up from a bad dream. And I got out of bed. I walked around my apartment. I remember not being certain what had happened, but I looked at my phone and there's this Amber Alert and it said there's a tornado that I thought it was coming, but had already hit. And the tornado essentially was what jolted me from my sleep because they hit so quick. And my building that I was living in was a direct hit. But the reason I couldn't figure out what was going on was the unit of my apartment building that I was living in when that tornado struck was in this corner, and while the building itself was completely destroyed, like we're talking trees were sticking through it, the roof had been torn off. My one apartment unit rather, was completely untouched by this tornado. It was the wildest experience. It was like sitting in this room and everything being on the walls, everything being completely fine, but outside is just destruction and this horrible storm. People were running and screaming, and I'm like, is this a bad dream? Like, I wanted to believe again that it was just a bad dream, but it wasn't. I was wide awake inside of this nightmare. And this tornado had come and tore apart our building, and I was kind of at the center of it, and I was unfazed by it. But I learned very, very quick in that moment that there was a lot of destruction around me. I looked out the window, there were cars flipping on top of cars, and we had to be evacuated from the building that night. But that was the first moment of my life. That night, once they took us to this shelter in Bicentennial Park, because we had to evacuate the area. There were gas lines that were broken, and all I wanted to do was go back to sleep. Honestly, I was just like, my apartment's fine. Like, can I just crawl back into bed? I was sitting in that shelter that they'd set up, and the mayor was actually there, and he was talking to us, and he's saying, you guys are so lucky, and we're just so grateful that you're all alive and that no one passed in this, and we're going to get you home. And that I had this mirrored moment of the car crash in that instance, and I'm like, what's happening? Like, I'm continually in the center of these disasters, but I'm okay. And I started thinking maybe praise God, this term that I had heard, these like thanking angels, or maybe Jesus. I was like, maybe I need to give some credit to that because I'm being pulled through these horrible circumstances. And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to like go to church, and I'm going to take a look at some of these books that my friends had bought me. I had tons of friends that bought me Bibles and bought me Jesus Calling books. And my old manager had bought me, I had a library of faith-based literature that I had stuffed inside of a chest because I didn't want to look at it. It was locked away in the corner of my room. And I said, you know what, when I get myself back on my feet from this tornado, I'm going to look at what faith means. Because I started believing that maybe I couldn't save myself. Maybe there was someone that was pulling me through this. And that was in March of 2020. And in May of 2020, I got sick like everyone else was with COVID, and I went to the hospital, and I had like some pain in my body, and I asked them to take a look at it, and they said I had to go in for a scan, and I went in for a scan, and it turned out that I had cancer, and it is a tumor. I had a large tumor inside of my body. And that was the first time that I actually reached out to God. I asked him. I was very angry. I was like, why? Like, why are you doing all of this? But why would you take that storm that's been happening in my life and put it inside of my body? And like, am I going to die? I asked all these questions, and I asked for an answer. I said, if you're real, I need you to show up. I need you to speak to me. And he did. I heard like the most audible words I could ever hear in this deep booming voice. I just heard, you are going to be okay.
Wow. It gives me chills.
It spoke to me like the loudest thing that I've ever heard. And I believed it. And I had to go in for surgery like the next day too. Like, this was a very serious case. Wow. I went in to the scan. The doctors found what they believed to be a tumor. And they told me, like, you have to be in surgery tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Like, you can't, it had been inside of my body for such a long time. I had neglected it, that they said, you have to get this taken out because at any moment in time, this thing could burst, it could spread. So I was in surgery the very next morning, and I have this wild photo that I took. I took a selfie that morning in surgery, and I had this big smile on my face, and there was this peace, and I truly believed that voice of God that I had heard. And I went in, and sure enough, they performed the surgery, tumor came out, and I was 100% cancer free.
Wow.
And I've been cancer free to that day, or to this day rather. And I just started praising God. I was like, okay, I get it. You know, I understand.
Yeah.
God is real. Someone's watching out for my life, and I need to start giving him praise. I need to start learning about this relationship, because he's clearly chasing a relationship with me. And I have been running for 40 years of my life. I had been completely neglecting the fact that in order to have a relationship, I had to speak back. He was speaking to me the whole time,
Yeah.
but I wasn't speaking back to him. And that was this real, like this linchpin in my life, where it put me on the path of faith, but there was a but there. And the but was, I started going to church. I started praying. I started researching who Jesus is and how to follow him. But I also believed a lie at that moment in time. I believed that if I'd made it through the car crash, the tornado, and the cancer, and now I had Jesus as well, I believed that I could just pray my sin away, and that I didn't have to live on a path of righteousness, that I could just live the life that I was living, but also pray. And it was like this 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach to faith that I had. And I really believed, I was like, well, yeah, like he loves me. He saved me. So whatever I go out in the world and do, I'll go to church on Sundays and I'll pray, and he'll continue to save me. And I learned the hardest way possible that that's not the case, that sin only opens the door to more sin.
Yeah.
And I had lived a life of sin at that point. God saved me through all of it. And he was trying to get my heart. And then he finally captured my heart. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to be the old Jesse, but I'm going to incorporate God into it. And I say all of this because I lived my life for about a year, calling myself a believer, going to church, starting community. But I was living a double life. I was living this complete life of sin, and then this life of righteousness that I was trying to incorporate together. And in November of 2021, which was about a year and a half after the cancer, I'll never forget. It was a Thursday. It was November 5th, and I was going to get coffee in Germantown, where I was living, and it was just the wildest morning. I essentially put my dog in my car. This is a long story. We had a rehearsal that day for a show in Leaper's Fork that night. And before the rehearsal, I wanted to go get coffee. So I was driving to Starbucks, and I pulled my truck out onto the road, and I saw this guy coming towards me really fast in a Jeep. And as I tried to make the turn onto the road, he kind of sped up, and it was like this competition where he was like, no, you're not making that turn. I'm going to cut you off. And it's just road rage. And he sped past me, looked me right in the eye, and I had to slam my brakes on, and I almost got run off the road. He almost tore the whole front off the truck, in front of my truck. I got really angry in that moment. And the irony of it is I have this tattoo on my arm that's Yeshua, which is my name in Hebrew that I was given, or Yehoshua, which is another translation of Jesus. And the reason I put it there was because this is like my WWJD. It's my what would Jesus do? I'm supposed to look at it anytime I'm about to make a decision that wouldn't follow him. I had my hand on the wheel, and it was right in my face. And what I should have done in that moment was just said, what would Jesus do? Well, he'd pray for him, and he'd go on about his day. But I got angry, and I was like, how dare that guy try to cut me off? And I wanted to follow him. So I took on my phone. I tried to film his license plate. I couldn't get it. I wanted to call the cops. I was like, I'm going to get this guy, because he almost got me. And I followed him a couple blocks. And I had my phone out the whole time because I'm trying to capture his license plate so I can call the police and say, there's this crazy driver, ran me off the road. You got to get him. And I followed him like 3 blocks in Germantown until all the cars in between us had made their turns. And when I finally got a chance to catch up to him, he took out a gun and he started firing at my truck. And he shot 1 bullet, hit the front of my truck. He shot a second bullet, and there's video of it. Someone's Ring camera caught the whole thing. All in all, he shot 14 bullets into my truck, and they all went right into the head, neck, and chest of the driver's seat that I was sitting in. But only one of the bullets went through my body, only one. And it was this unbelievable unbelievable moment where
So insane.
it's nuts. Like there's so much more to this story. But I mean, my dog was in my car and none of the bullets hit her. My car was completely bullet riddled. Like I have these photos. These bullets tore straight through the window of my driver's seat, into the head and the neck and the chest of my driver's seat, through the back seat, and out the back window. And again, like I had only been hit with one. Right in the back of my shoulder, I was like ducking and my hand was all torn up from the glass. But I remember in that moment just praying, like, not my head, like don't hit my head or my heart. That was all that I was praying. And it all happened again, just like all of these things that happened, like the car crash and the tornado. It was this instant where a lifetime happened in this instant. But I know that I was praying through it. And
Wow.
I walked out of that car very confused about what had happened. But in the days that followed that, those were probably the most important days of my life. I remember retreating into a really dark space. I was in my apartment. I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I slept for maybe 2 days of that. I just wasn't sure how to process what was going on. But the really important change that happened in my life was the first 2 days after that shooting. There was a lot of information coming at me. It was, who is the guy? How am I alive? What happened?
Yeah. And what'd you have to do for the bullet that hit
The bullet
you?
was through and through. The really crazy part is I actually played the show that night in
No
Leapers
way.
Fork. Yeah. There's video.
Like it went in and out?
It went in and directly out. Yeah. Like when I was in the hospital, it was part of this wild, nightmarish dream that I felt like I was in. They were like rolling me all around the table and looking at my body. They're like, you may have other bullets in there. You don't know when you get shot at 14 times. You can be in shock and you can have other bullets that are actually lodged in your body and you wouldn't even know it.
Wow.
Because your adrenaline is so high. But I went into the hospital that day and they kind of like looked at the wounds and they said, I think it's through and through. And they can't actually sew up a bullet wound if it's through and through because the body has to reject anything that's left inside the body. If you sew up an area you've been shot in and there's anything left in that area, it can deeply poison your body. So essentially, I was discharged from the hospital. The whole time I was in the hospital, I was yelling at them like, I have a show tonight. I have to get to this show tonight. Can you please let me out? Like, I got to get to rehearsal. It was a super important show. We had like record label people coming and I'm like, I got to go. And they're like, dude, you've just been shot 14 times. Like, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, no. I have to go. And I was in such a haze that day because again, my adrenaline was so high, but I got out and I went and played the show that night. And when I got home from that show that night, though, that was when the crash kind of happened and everything hit me. And like I said, I slept for like 2 days and a lot of information started coming at me. I had this bandage on the back of my shoulder. It was the only thing that I could do. I had to redress it myself every day. And I started getting information about who the shooter was and why this may have happened. The cops were calling me. I had lawyers calling me. I had like all this influx of information and I was really angry for the first couple days. And everyone that was calling me was like, we're going to get this guy, like you're going to sue him and his family. And I had a lot of opinions that was like, you're going to walk away from this so much more whole than you went into it. And it was all about revenge. The whole thing had this tinge of like, we're going to get this guy. Same thing that led me into the scenario was the same thing that was perpetuating throughout it.
Wow.
And I think it was like the third morning after this, I woke up and I didn't understand why, but the only thing I could feel in my heart was like, I have to forgive him. Like I have to let go. I have to let go of all of this and I have to forgive the shooter and I have to forgive myself. And I've posted a lot of this in recent months. I mean, it's been 3 years since it happened, but I posted a lot about my forgiveness for him on social media and I get hate on that. Like I get so many people that are like, how dare you forgive someone who could do this to someone else? And you're a fool. You're an idiot. You can't forgive this guy should be in jail. You're perpetuating violence on the streets. But I knew that I had to forgive him because I lived. And God saved me through it. And I was like, what would God do? Like, I finally looked at that tattoo on my arm. I'm like, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Would he condemn this guy to a life of death, or would he find it in his heart to forgive him? And I just felt like the only path forward in my own life was forgiveness.
Yeah.
And forgiveness in Hebrew actually it means like to drop, to release, to let go of the weight. And I just had this weight on my shoulders. And I remember telling everyone in my circle, I'm like, I'm just going to walk away from this thing. Like I'm going to forgive him, because I lived and he lived, and we were both getting second chances in this. And I walked away from the entire thing. But that forgiveness was the seed that was the start of my faith journey, for real.
Wow.
It was, I knew I had to forgive myself for everything that I had done that led me to that point. I had to forgive the shooter. And I just had this posture of peace in my heart. And I went to church that Sunday, walked back into Cross Point, which was the only church at that time that I'd ever really been in. And I prayed with the pastor, and he told me to come back, and we connected, and I kept on going back, and I kept on forming community around faith and around prayer. And I was baptized a month later, completely gave my life and my heart to the Lord. And that shooting was like the final moment that just led me to wanting to chase God as badly as he'd been chasing me.
Yeah.
And just try to live my life on a path of righteousness.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That is crazy. You have like literally escaped death by an inch.
Yeah.
What is that, 5 times?
I mean, who's counting, right? It's like,
Yeah, I'm losing count because it's so many.
it was like it was 4 times in a matter of like three years. It was this really intense crash course, literally, no pun intended, of mercy, of grace, of miracles. Just miracles on miracles.
Yeah.
That God was performing all around me. And I was just really stubborn. I mean, I didn't want to give glory to anyone other than myself. I thought I could save myself. And yeah, God got my attention finally. It took a lot, but I looked at everything that happened, and I'm like, that's all it is God trying to get my attention.
Yeah, wow. Okay, I have quite a few questions.
Yeah, come on.
One, do you ever think about like why God chose you to experience all of those things? You know what I mean?
It's an amazing question. Yeah. I believe that I have a mission, and that he has me on a mission, and that as much as in the moments of all of those things, I wanted to understand exactly why they were happening. Hindsight is really 2020. And I think that every day that I live, every moment that I get to breathe, I'm discovering and rediscovering that purpose.
Yeah.
And I know that he has me on a mission. I used to think that it was to make music, and I still think that it is, but now it's where's the message pointing that I'm trying to perpetuate in this world. And it's changed very much in the last 3 years. And I believe that the mission gets revealed to me just a little bit more every day. Sometimes it takes a year for me to figure out what the messages are that God's speaking to me. But I think he chose me to go through that because he's writing a story in my life that hopefully can affect other people. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's 20 years from now. Maybe it's 40 years from now. I read so many stories.
I think it's now too. You're telling the story, and I'm like, my heart is racing because I'm so shook by all of that.
Yeah.
I also think a lot of people, when I asked that question, I just started thinking, I think there's two ways to respond, like, why me? I think you can almost ask why me in a rhetorical way, where it's just like, why me, God? Like, I'm the victim. Or it can be like, why me, God? Like, why did you choose me, and where am I going with this? You know what I mean? I think you can ask why me, and it can take you to 2 different places, a place of a victim or a place of purpose.
I think in my own life, I deeply believe that it's a place of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that there's purpose and there's heavy responsibility. And I'm discerning that, every day I'm learning what that responsibility means and
Yeah.
how to shepherd the path that I've been given and try and bring it to other people and help them look at their own story and say, what is God trying to do through me today?
Yeah. I feel that with my dad too. I'm like, there are days that I find myself falling into a space of like, why me, feeling like a victim? Like, why, how could you let this happen to me? But then when I step back and like look through a lens of truth that I know is what God calls me to have, I'm like, why us, God? Why did you choose us? What do you want us to do with this journey?
Yeah.
And it really is a path of purpose for his kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an active choice to choose the latter versus just being like, why me, God? Why would you do this to me?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have those moments and those thoughts, and God can handle those too, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I love that some of your first interactions with God was anger.
Yeah.
Like when you said some of the first times you called out to him, you were angry. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think feeling the freedom to take our anger to God is something that some people who have been raised believers their whole lives really struggle to do. But it's like that was your first, some of your first conversations was just like your honest emotions.
Yeah.
You know, which I know God loved. I thought that was really cool. I'm also very curious if you connected with the shooter.
I haven't yet.
Like, do you know him?
I know everything about him. I mean,
Yeah.
I know who he is, and it's something. I mean, even in this moment, you're speaking into something that I've been praying on a lot, and it's been 3 years, but in the same time, 3 years is such a short period of time, and
Yeah.
I think that I've been going through a healing process with this whole story. I mean, I didn't even share it after it happened. Like I purposefully, they reported it on the news, and I asked them to withhold my name from it and any
Wow.
information about it because I didn't know that I was ready to process it or ready to share it. And it's
Yeah.
only been very recently that I've started speaking about it, and I've really been open, not just with my friends, but with
Yeah.
anyone who wants to know, because I do believe that God has a purpose for all of it, and that's
Totally.
being revealed in real time. The only time I connected with the shooter was in court, which was maybe, I don't remember if it was 6 months afterwards. It was the state rather had a case against him, which I had to show up for. I was asked if I wanted to pursue large civil action against him, and that's what I decided not to do. I wanted to walk away from that because I didn't want the evil that was in all of that to perpetuate my life and keep me held under. But I saw him in court, and I learned a lot in court. I learned a lot about him. I learned a lot about his family. I learned a lot about what he was going through and why he may have done what he did that day. All I really remember was this. It's a really strange part of the story, but I was sitting in court, and he took the stand, and I was sitting down there, and I had my hands like together, like this, and I just remember looking down at my hands, and they were bleeding, and I was so nervous seeing him there that I actually like had picked away part of my hand, not even knowing what I was doing, because it scared me to be in the same room as him. But the more that I've learned about him, I've been praying for him. I've been praying over him and his family, taking a complete posture of like, God, do in this man's life what you did in mine.
Yeah.
I was saved. Had I died that day, his life would have very likely been over too. He may have not lost his life, but he would have gone away, and there just would have been so much negativity with families and lawsuits, and he would have gone to jail for the rest of his life, and he didn't, and I got to live. And I pray every day that he gets a second life too. And both of us were pulled through that for a reason. I'd love to connect with him.
Yeah.
I would love at some point to open that door, because I lived in fear for the first year. I remember thinking, what if he's coming to get me still? I used to wake up in the middle of the night and think, what if this guy actually meant to shoot me? Which I learned that he didn't. That's a whole other part of the story. But I learned in court that he had his own struggles. He had his own battles, and he had evil that was chasing him too. And he just took it out in a fit of anger. But
when you heard that, did you feel affirmed in your decision to not pursue, to let it go?
100%.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, look, no one should shoot 14
sure.
bullets at anyone, in a residential area, no one should have the ability to take someone else's life
Yeah.
at free will. But yeah, I felt peace. I felt a lot of peace when I heard his side of the story. I just felt like God was pulling me to walk in God's path and walk away from judgment and walk away from condemnation and all of these judgmental decisions I wanted to make regarding his life, which I really knew nothing about other than we had an interaction. It was a really bad one, and we both walked away from it.
Yeah. Well, and also I'm sure whether he or not he knows the reason that you chose not to pursue those charges, he had to have walked away being like, why? Why would he not? You know what I mean? And right now he might not know, but if you do get the opportunity to connect with him, how cool to be able to say, it's because of Jesus, man. And because he softened my heart and like he forgives me and I forgive you, you know? Yeah. That is what would change someone's life, you know?
I've lived a lot of the years after all of these I call them accidents or pillars of my faith. Really, I've lived a lot of these years thinking that, like, man, I have to lead people to Jesus. Like, I have to save them, and I've had this heavy weight for. This is the first time I've ever even talked about this, but I've always thought like I have to save them. Like I have to bring them from where they are to a place of salvation, and I have to like facilitate that whole change the way that God facilitated it in me. But I've been coming to this piece that's like it's not my responsibility to save them.
Yep.
It's just my responsibility to lead them there.
Yep.
And a simple conversation with somebody saying, man, it was Jesus.
Yep.
That could be enough. And it's like, I want to grow the whole garden, but I just have to plant the seed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally just had this conversation with someone a couple of days ago. It takes so much pressure off of you when you let the pressure fall off of bringing people to salvation. Like only God can save someone. Mm-hmm. Only God can give someone salvation. You cannot. You can only share with them.
Yeah.
And we also just talked about this, like with Love One, our nonprofit. It opens so many doors to have conversations about Jesus when our staff is coming in and caring for these people's kids. Like anybody can go in and evangelize and tell people about Jesus. I think it would be easy. Our staff in Uganda is completely Ugandan, and they're reaching Ugandan people. But I still think it would be easy for people in these remote places to be like, you live in the city. You live a good life. Don't come up here telling me about your Jesus when I'm living when this is my reality. And it's so broken and so hard. But we had a board meeting last week and we were talking about how cool it is that like, because we are caring for their sick babies and their babies who literally are about to die, come to Love One, get healthy and come back restored. It just opens a door and it's like, we're for you. We're on your team. And we've shown you that we love you through our actions. And now that you know that we love you through our actions, like we get to tell you about Jesus. You know, it's the same thing with you in this situation. It's like you've shown love to him through your actions. And that is what makes people's hearts open to Jesus, which is such a bigger conversation in Christianity too, because I think sometimes people do get caught in the legalism of like, well, disciplining them or, you know, this is what's right before showing someone love. It's like no one's ever going to hear your heart. If you're in disagreement about someone's lifestyle or something that they're doing or they're living in sin or whatever, no one's going to hear your heart on that unless they believe that you love them. If they don't believe that you love them, then it's just going to come across as like legalistic and judgmental. Yeah. You know?
Yep.
Just a recurring theme across all situations.
But I mean, I've led with all postures towards people, and the only one that works is love.
Yeah. Which is what Jesus did. Okay, another question I had while you were telling your story, many stories, around the tornado story. What was your experience like with people coming around you after that happened to help you rebuild?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, I saw something happen with that tornado in regards to community that I'd never seen in my life. And I couldn't figure out what it was, if it was just Nashville or if it was the community, like the neighborhood that I lived in. I mean, it was true servanthood. Like people literally gave days of their time following that tornado. People just showed up outside of our apartment building. like hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'd never seen anything like this in my life. And they were just serving. They were volunteering. They were like, what do you need? How do we help you get everything out of the building? One of the crazy things that happened after that tornado was we all had to sign a document saying that if we re-entered the building to get our stuff, we released all liability for any harm, death, injury, because the building itself was so compromised. Wow. That they were saying, if you enter this building and it falls, we're not responsible, because it was just devastated. But flip side, everyone had to get their stuff. So we had these like 4 hour at a time windows to enter the building and basically get everything that we had out of the building, because they're like, this building is going to fall at some point. We have to demolish it, or we have to go back in and look at the structure. And there were just hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up in the 2 days after that. People I didn't even know were coming into my apartment, packing boxes, putting them together. And that would have made the old me very uncomfortable. But in that scenario, I saw all these people coming together for a singular purpose of helping each other. It was one of the most incredible and beautiful things that I had ever seen. Yeah. And it did a lot to my brain in that moment when I'm processing, maybe God is real, and here's all these people showing up and they want to help. It was amazing.
I tried to ask that in an open-ended way, because we went down there and helped out with stuff afterwards, and that's just, I do think, I'm sure there are other places that are like that, but I do think that is just the spirit of community in Nashville. It's always been that way.
Yes.
And I just remember there's so many times that's happened over the years. Not just tornadoes. Like there was a huge flood one year and our whole school took a day off to go help flood victims, do things like that, pack things up, redo their landscaping, different things. And I just remember that being such a powerful experience. Like I remember being teary looking around the day after the tornado, just being like, this is so special, because people took off work. Like, all these, I was down there with a friend of mine who's very outdoorsy. I say that she's like the most multifaceted person. She's a model. There are these guys. They're like, does anyone have an extra chainsaw? And she's like, I have one in my truck. So I have my friend who's like 6'3", ripping her chainsaw, and they're cutting down trees. And anyways, that was such a powerful experience for me as someone who just came and watched everyone come together. And so I was just curious if you felt that as someone who was a victim of it and saw.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I've come to know God so much through serving.
Yeah.
And I see in retrospect how all those people, they gave up all their time. They just came to serve. They came to help. And I've poured a large part of my life over the last couple of years into trying to serve as much as I possibly can, because I know how, I mean, that's literally what Jesus tells us to do is to serve. And, it's really interesting. A part of my story that I didn't tell is because it has nothing to do with the last 5-6 years, but it has everything to do with how I came to know God. The first time I ever served in my life was like 2012, I think. And it was in Africa. I'd actually gone down to help build a school in Kenya. And cool. I served for, I think it was like a month. And I just remember it being such a transformational experience, because I was kind of uncomfortable serving. I was on a Europe trip, and I'd wound up heading over to Kenya because I wanted to do something with this trip when I'm in Europe, and I'm thinking, I got to do something that's not like backpacking and staying in hostels. I need to do something that I'll remember, that's not just going out at night in different cities. Yeah. And I flew to Kenya, and I helped build this school, and I did it for about a month, and I just spent my whole month building and serving communities. And on the last day that I was there, I had this feeling like, I'm like, man, everyone here is so happy.
Yeah.
And they have so much less than we do here. And all I've been doing is giving my time for them. And I found more peace in my heart in that month of my life than in the 6 or 7 months that I was in Europe around there. But I believed on the last day of that trip, for the first time in my life, I believed God was actually real. Yeah. I didn't know who God was at that time. He didn't have a name. He didn't have a face, didn't have a story that I could connect with, but I just believe in the presence of God. And that came through serving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this segues into, there's 2 other things I want to ask you. One, this segues into something else. one thing that my mom always says, and this is appropriate to share with you because you're engaged, which we can talk about.
Yep.
But she always says in marriage, the best way to love your spouse is to try to wake up every day and try to outserve them.
That's so good.
She's like, that's the key to a successful marriage is you wake up and you try to outserve who you're married to.
I love that.
And that's so good.
Yeah.
So good marriage advice.
Okay.
And I think about it all the time.
Wow.
Especially sometimes I think in marriage it's easy. I think in our flesh it's easy to just fall into like keeping score, being like, well, I did all this and they're, but if you can just focus on like, how can I do more to serve them? You will not fall into that trap. It's a good hack.
That's really good.
I know. So that's one thing I want to hear. Just you can tell the story of how you and Brianna or Brianna.
It's Brianna.
Okay, I didn't want to mess up the pronunciation.
It's fine. She gets it a lot.
I'm sure. We also just need to get a double date on the books because I want to spend time with her. But I would love to hear how y'all met, but also I know that you met her a little later in life. And there's a lot of people who listen to this who are single. Any wisdom you want to impart or just like things that you learned from the experience of being single before you met her and just waiting for the right person, and like how worth it is to wait, even if it takes a long time.
Yeah. I mean, she is such proof of God's presence and provision because
so sweet.
I met her at 42.
Which you do not look like you're in your 40s.
I feel
It's
like
crazy.
it.
Well,
I might not look like it, or rather I'm starting to feel like it, which is a wild part of
well,
part
I
of
can't
life.
imagine. It's not like you've gone through anything physically.
No. I met her, 42, and I had, when I had my first encounter with God, I wanted to remove certain things from my life, and dating was one of them. So I took this period of like 3 years where I didn't really date. And I was just focused on, man, like all I've been doing is throwing myself into the wrong situations and chasing things of this world. So I kind of removed myself after the shooting from the dating world. I also stopped drinking after that. And I had gone into this period of deep singleness where I was really focused on like, what's wrong in my life and with me and my relationship with God that is leading me to the wrong people. And in those 3 years, I prayed nonstop. I prayed, and even your husband, Davey, like the workout group that we had, they would all pray over me. I think there was Kingston and I, there was 2 single guys, and Kingston is like 20, right? And I'm 41 at that point. And I'm like, why am I still single? But I truly believed in all of the years that I couldn't find that person. Like I've never been engaged. I've never been married. And a lot of people are like, why? Like, well, it wasn't God's time for me. But I prayed through my singleness, and in those seasons of being single, I just wanted to make sure that I was fixing what I needed to fix inside of myself so that when I did meet the person that God had meant for me, that I was ready for it. Because
which is such a gift to your future spouse to figure those things out.
I mean, it's a gift to my own spirit and,
totally,
to my heart. And I know that it's a gift to her. It's a gift to God too.
Yeah. That's good.
Because I spent so much time being like, God, fix me and help me learn who I need to be so that when that person comes along, I don't mess that one up too. Because I had dated my whole life and I had just failed time and time and time again. And when I finally met Bree, I know I was ready for her.
Yeah.
I was ready to walk into the season of life where I could serve someone and I could actually be there in the way that God needed me to show up for her. And when I met her, the interesting thing is I technically met her on Instagram. We met each other through following each other, which is, I guess it's not really meeting, but kind of is.
My best friends have found their spouses that way.
So I always tell people, I'm like, you can meet somebody from clicking a follow link, and you obviously have to talk to them after that. But this is the interesting part, and I hope that it encourages someone out there. Like, I followed Brianna in 2022, I think, which was after the shooting, but I was in a season of singleness and I was in a season of trying to pray and fix what was going on inside of me for that person. I followed her because I saw a photo of her. She's a singer-songwriter as well.
She's beautiful.
Thank you. She's amazing inside and out. And I saw this photo of her face, and I remember having this moment thinking, oh my God, like, who is that? And I need to know her. So I clicked the follow button, and then I started watching her stories. I'm like, oh, she has a boyfriend. And I fell in love with her. I hope this doesn't sound creepy, but I fell in love with her, like watching her relationship with her boyfriend. And I thought, man, this guy is so lucky. And what a beautiful person, what a talented singer and songwriter, and just beautiful soul. And I was sure he was going to marry her, but I prayed, like, God, if it's not her, because she's in this relationship, just make it someone exactly like her.
Oh.
Like, it looks like
please,
her.
God, let him fumble.
Like, I actually never prayed that, believe it or not.
I'm just kidding, I know.
But I was like, God, just, if it's not her, because it doesn't look like it is, can you just bring me someone like a carbon copy?
That's so
And
sweet.
I just watched her and him and their relationship, and like, make it something like that. And I just, for years, I would just know that she existed, but I was like, I got to work on myself. I gotta fix what's wrong in me. And 3 years later, it was last November, I was in Toronto, and I had a dream about her. It was this wild, it was like the strangest vision. I had a dream of her, and I knew that it was her in the dream. Like, I could very clearly see her face. And I woke up in Toronto the next day, and I'm on Instagram again, and I'm scrolling, and she posts this story, a question and answer, and someone asked about her boyfriend, and she said that they were not together anymore. And I felt this like conviction in that moment that was like, you have to talk to her now.
Wow.
Like, this is it. If you don't talk to her now, you're going to lose this opportunity. And I remember I had traveled back to Nashville the day after that, and I still remember where I was. I was in my car, and I'm like driving through Franklin, and I'm like, what do I say? Like, I have to say something, because God was speaking to me again. He was like, now, this is the time. And I waited like a couple days, and I just was like, what do I say to her? And the first message I ever sent her was a voice message saying, I really love the way she wears her heart for Jesus on her sleeve, because she was so open about her faith. And that was something I loved about her so much, her online presence. And I sent her that message, and it took a couple back and forths for us to actually start talking. But once we started talking, we never stopped.
Yeah.
And still to this day, it was just this conversation that once that first message went through and hers came back, we just never stopped talking. We just started becoming friends, and it was like effortless. And so many years through my singleness, I had chased things or ideas that weren't chasing me back. And I was always like, why isn't it working? Like, why can't I date properly? And my advice for anyone is like, when it's the person who is meant for you, it will be effortless.
Yeah.
There will be effort involved in reaching out, but you'll be their best friend, and you'll just start this conversation that will never end.
Yeah.
And we connected, had the best first date that I've ever had, stayed up talking until it was time to go home. And yeah, we just kept on talking, and that conversation turned into what we have now, which is we got engaged a month ago, and we're getting married next year. And
so epic.
It's amazing. I mean, she's incredible. And I know there's confirmation after confirmation that she's exactly who God designed for me.
Yeah.
And that I had to go through everything that I went through, wait and be patient.
Yeah.
Really, patience was a big part of it.
Yeah.
In order for me to pass those seasons in my life that I wasn't meant to be with anyone.
Yep.
And when I finally got to this season and I was ready, God brought her in, and it was easy, and it was beautiful.
You know, 2 takeaways, I think, for any single people listening. Number 1, something that you and Davey have in common is that I also was dating someone else, and Davey was saying to his friends, I'm going to marry that girl one day.
I actually have, I have a text. I forgot to say this. I have a text that I sent to my best friend back in Canada immediately after our first date. And I sent him a text, and it said, I just went on a date with the girl that I'm going to marry. Yep. And this was literally right after our first date. And he was like, bro, slow down. Like,
yeah, Davey said that to his brother after our first date too.
You're crazy. And I'm like, no, I need this as proof. because I need you. I just
Yeah.
need like something somewhere because
Someone showed at their rehearsal
I
dinner.
knew exactly. I just knew it. I was like, this is the woman that I'm going to marry.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in my mind at all. So yeah, I
Yeah.
knew. I mean, yeah.
So one thing that I think people can take away from this is if you're not dating the right person, I'm just laughing thinking like, let's say that she had stayed in that relationship because it was comfortable or whatever. I had stayed in the relationship for whatever reason, even though I didn't have a piece in it. I would have missed out on Davy. She would have missed out on you. So I think the fact that both of you were looking at us from the outside saying like, yeah, they're in a relationship, but I believe that's going to be my wife. And look at this is a word for people watching who might be dating someone and maybe feel like you're supposed to break up, but it's scary. And you're like, is there somebody else out there for me? Like it's two testimonies that like, if we didn't follow our peace in ending those relationships, we wouldn't be with who we're supposed to be now. The other thing that I was going to say, I think that is a good takeaway for your story, especially just like following her in 2022 and not reaching out till so much later. I think I have a lot of friends who are single, and a lot of times it's easy to want to control. Like you see someone cute follow you and you're like, oh, I want to take matters into my own hands. But it's like you followed her and she could have been like, why isn't he reaching out to me? I know she was dating someone, but I think a lot of girls, when a cute guy follows them, it's like, why isn't he reaching out to me? And they start overthinking things. And it's like, sometimes if you take things in your own hands, that wouldn't have been the right timing for you. You know what I mean? Like you were in a place where you're like, I know God wants me to be single right now. I want him to fix all these things in me and grow me. And because yes, she was dating someone, but even if you're not dating someone and you hear this and there's someone that you're like, could be the one for me. I think it's just a good reminder to release control and that like God's timing, like you said,
God's timing is perfect.
Yes.
It always is. And she's such proof of that. I mean,
Yeah.
she really is. Our whole relationship is proof of that. A lot of people ask questions about our age difference and none of it matters.
Yeah.
All that matters is that God's timing is intentional.
Yeah.
And you can't question, if you're in a season of life where you're looking for someone, there's nothing wrong with waiting. There's nothing wrong with patience. I mean, patience is probably the most important word. Every year since I've come to know God, I've had a word. And the first word that I had after that shooting was actually patience.
Wow.
Patience, perseverance, practice, prayer. They're all words that start with P for some reason. But patience was my first word. And I believe that impatience was what led me into that shooting. It was the inability to be patient with just what was happening in an exact moment in a very small part of my life. And I wrote it down. I said, if patience is peace, then expectation is chaos. And I needed to pray into patience.
That's so good.
She is the answer to patience.
Yeah.
She's the answered prayer to me being patient in my life, being 42 before I ever found the person that I was meant to be with. But she could not be more carved by the hand of God for me.
Yeah.
And it was waiting. It was patience that delivered that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, last question. I told you I was going to ask you this, but what is your favorite miracle in the Bible?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Well, you can thank Davey, because when we started this, he was like, you need to ask every guest that. And it's been so cool to hear all the answers.
That is an amazing question. So I'm glad that you asked me that, because I thought about it. I prayed on that. And my favorite miracle, so let me go back. In Judaism, what I grew up with, miracles, the word is, I looked this up, it's Nisim. And miracles, they can mean this supernatural miracle, but they also show up in it's a manifestation of God's provision and presence in life. And they can be these great supernatural miracles, but they can also be these like tiny little natural miracles that happen every day and every moment. So for me, my favorite miracle in the Bible is creation. It's the very beginning. It's Genesis. It's the first word of the Bible. It's Bereshit, which is in the beginning. And it's just it's a provision that God gives us still every day. God is creating in every single moment. I believe that every moment that we get to be alive, creation is happening over and over and over again. So it's the very beginning.
Okay, that's crazy on a few levels that you said that. That's such a great answer, first off. Second off, you probably don't know this, but I almost named this podcast Miracles in the Meantime, because I didn't just want it to be these crazy miracle stories. I also wanted it to be stories of God showing up in ways that aren't like jaw-dropping, but they're still miraculous in how he showed up. And long story short, miracles and grace, I listened to a sermon that was talking about how grace is God at work, which is basically miracles and stories of God at work. So the name still means miracles in the meantime, basically, but it's miracles and grace.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, because that is like the heart of this podcast. Also, I was laying in bed last night and I had the thought, like, when you hear miracles in the Bible, you usually think miracles of Jesus when he was on earth. And I've loved hearing people's answers around that. But I was thinking specifically about Noah and the ark last night, and I was thinking about the Old Testament. I also love that you answered Old Testament because you grew up Jewish. I think that's really cool. But I was thinking about Noah and the ark, and how, think about in modern day, if God spoke down to someone and said, build a giant boat because I'm going to flood the world. And then, number one, that would be crazy. But you just think about if someone went out and bought a giant piece of land and started building a giant boat, everyone would think that they are absolutely crazy. But then when it started raining, everyone would be like, oh no. And you'd be like, that guy actually heard from God and built this huge boat. That's crazy. That's miraculous. You know what I mean? And so it's not just, the question really isn't limited to just what Jesus did. It's like miracles are tied from in the beginning until Revelation, you know?
100%. Yeah.
So I love that answer. This has been so awesome, and I'm really glad that I heeded Davy's advice and had you on.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Davy.
yeah, Davy's the heart behind of a lot of the good things in this podcast.
Oh, that's awesome. But thank you for having me. This has been such a good conversation.
I know. Thank you for being here. I'm sure people are going to love it.